Hello and welcome to CSO Connected. I'm your host, Josh Smith, and today I'm delighted to be joined by my guest, Sam Rathlin. Sam, you're the most sought after LinkedIn expert and social selling strategist in Europe. You're an international keynote speaker. You're the chief visionary officer for LinkedIn Inbound. You're the author of this pretty practical book. I think it's probably the best way to describe it. You also on a pretty spectacular mission to generate £1 billion in sales for your clients by 2025. So that's a pretty exciting goal. And I think to kick this off, the question that I wanted to ask you first was just how do you manage your day? You know, I think there sounds like there's so much going on. How do you get through it?
That's a great question, actually. I mean, my day's pretty hectic. I mean, this is the 4th interview I think I'm doing all day today. I'm very organized and I have a very strict calendar, and I'm really good at saying no to the right things and yes to the things I should be focused on. So I think over the last couple of years, I've just really narrowed my focus on who my target audience is, and anything that doesn't fit within that remit or doesn't fit with my plan doesn't go in my diary.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much the right way to do this. I spoke to a mutual friend of ours, actually, Marcus, and he said that your diary is a sight to behold. And he did also say to be cheeky enough to ask you to see it. So
oh, really?
Possible or not?
You want me to share my screen on my diary?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me have a look now. I wasn't really prepped for that. Hang on one second. My diary is very interesting. So yeah, so this is generally what my diary looks like, and it's scheduled from sleep to getting my day prepared to time with my kids to all of my interviews and sales time and social selling work and recordings and things like that. So yeah, this is kind of typical weeks for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is the structure something you live and die by? Is it something that you would, need to run the business that you do the way you do?
Yeah, like I think, and Marcus taught me this. He said, you've always got to make sure that the most important things are in first. So health, time with kids, they tend to get left by the wayside, whereas I put those in first and for everything else around it. So I do use a scheduling system. So I use Calendly to book all my calls, which means that people can only book calls at certain times, etc. So I'm very disciplined with my diary, and that's the only way I can cope with everything I have to do, because I run a very busy business and I have 3 children as well. So
no, I think it's so interesting. It's something that we don't necessarily get the opportunity to ask business leaders a lot is, how do they manage their day, and, how do they prioritize what they do in a day? And I think that, like you said, a lot of the times the home stuff, spending time with the kids, doing something that you love outside of work tends to get left behind. But without that, you probably struggle to have the motivation to run a business the way that you do. So then for you, I mean, how important is family life, and how do you actually manage it whilst doing the plethora of things that you do every day?
And well, family is everything. It's why I started the business in the first place and building a legacy for my kids. So I just think it's really important. I probably don't spend as much time with my children as other parents, but when I do, I'm really present. Yeah. And I don't have my phone. I'm not trying to manage calls and emails and everything else. So my kids actually take my phone away when it's mummy time. It pings up on their iPad. And they go, "Mummy, it's mummy time," and I give them my phone and it goes away. So I'm spending a lot more quality time with them, not necessarily quantity.
Yeah. And I definitely think the word that you said there, present, probably means the most in that sense. And I think that means more, not just in family, but also in business as well, as if we have a meeting, being able to be truly present because we've allocated the proper time to be able to do that. And one other question that I was really, really excited to ask you, and I'm excited to ask this to everybody I get the chance to speak to, who is your role model? Because I assume you didn't have this vision from seeing nobody replicate something so fast. Who do you aspire to be?
That's a really good question. And I think at different stages of my career, I've always had mentors around me. I've always had coaches around me. I've always been in mastermind groups. So I invest a lot of time in my own personal development. So I wouldn't necessarily say there's just one person. I mean, I listen to 1 Audible book a week at least. So I consume a lot of books. I consume a lot of podcasts. I watch TED Talks as a daily practice. I'm coached by, in my opinion, the best sales coach on the planet. I have a great business mentor, my business partner, Nick Jones, who is absolutely phenomenal and is a real strategist to help me with my business. So I've always surrounded myself since I became an entrepreneur with the right people. and not just the right people, but people that are further along in their journey than I am, so I can always learn. I used to get mentored by a guy called John C. Maxwell. He's written about 25 books on leadership. And he always said that if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room and you need to get out. So I kind of outgrow certain things, like I outgrow masterminds, I outgrow environments, and then I search for other people that can take me to the next level.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've practically built a business around that concept of, you know, being around the brightest people.
Yeah.
You know, what your remit is. You know, our business is filled with senior sales leaders from across the world, different scales and sizes of companies. And I think that you're always in a position where there's always somebody in that environment where you can learn from that will stretch and develop you. Yeah, I love that. Absolutely love that. And, you know, one other selfish question, because a lot of this is going to be selfish, right? That's the reason why I think I jumped up to do this interview more than anybody else. One, because I am a huge fan of social selling and LinkedIn. You know, I am absolutely glued to LinkedIn every single day. But one question I would love to know the answer from is, you know, if you were 21 again, you know, what would be the thing you'd whisper in your ear starting again?
I was 21 again. I mean, Josh, I mean, barely past 21. What would I say to my 21-year-old younger self? I would probably say to myself to pick your niche, pick your target market, know who you want, build your brand and your reputation around that exact target market, and go dominate that space and just put a flag in it and just claim it as yours, and do it through social selling to build your reputation and your brand to become the go-to expert in that space.
And I think the specificity thing is probably the most interesting point about social selling as a strategy, because I think that so commonly it's seen as a scattergun type approach, very unfocused, very impersonal, kind of chuck enough shit at the wall, something's going to stick. But done the right way, it's the complete polar opposite of that. And I guess with that question, why LinkedIn as a platform versus any other platform? Why did you specialize in LinkedIn?
Well, my background is recruitment for my sins. So I started out life as a recruiter in 2001. LinkedIn came along in 2003, and I was a really early adopter of the platform just because it was the industry that I was in. So back then, and I think that people have a really misconception about LinkedIn being this kind of CV candidate recruitment kind of platform. It used to be a long time ago, but obviously it's changed a lot since. And because I was such an early adopter in the beginning, I was using it to find great talent and using it for headhunting. And 2005, I became a business owner and an entrepreneur. And I suddenly needed to shift from LinkedIn being a place where I'd find talent to a place where I could find clients and lead generation. So I've been testing and measuring and playing around with LinkedIn for, you know, going on 15 plus years. I've been teaching it for more than a decade now, and everything is self-taught. And LinkedIn for me, as if you're in business to business, so if you're a sales leader and you've got a sales team that is targeting business to business, it is by far the number one platform out there for reach. And I think the fact you can get so much organic reach within LinkedIn, so it's not a pay to play platform. It's a place where you can get thousands of eyeballs on your brand, that your sales teams can get massive results from prospecting and lead generation without paying LinkedIn a penny, unless you obviously move into the more, you know, sophisticated things like Sales Navigator, which I recommend. But it is an amazing platform for building both a personal brand, but also building a corporate brand as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, I see LinkedIn almost as a search engine for prospects, as a very probably oversimplistic way of describing it. And, you know, your profile pretty much as a shop window to potential customers versus that traditional resume that so many people get locked on.
Yes.
But then for you coaching that, how do you get people to kind of go away from using it as a CV, as a job hunting tool, to something that they then optimize for sales and outreach specifically?
Well, most of the people that I work with are sales teams, sales leaders, and quite often marketing teams as well. But from a sales perspective, I think, you know, a lot of people come into my training rooms and they are skeptical. They've traditionally used all the other methods to generate business. They come in as non-believers, not realizing that it's going to work. And because when I teach people, but they're actually doing it with me, I quite often have people come in the room on day one, very skeptical. And by day two, they've already got sales conversations started. They've already had the opportunity to move potential prospects to the next level. So I think just by having them actually do that at the same time with me, and the magic sauce comes in the way that you outreach. The mistake that too many salespeople make is that they see this big platform as a place full of people that they can sell to and a potential prospects for them, and they don't build the credibility and build the relationship, and they go straight into selling mode, which is very natural for a salesperson to do, and that immediately repels people. So if you sell on LinkedIn, you're going to repel. So using things like in-mails and pitching people as soon as they've connected is just not the way to do social selling, but unfortunately that is the way that most people think it should be done. And therefore they don't get the results that they're looking for. So just by tweaking things like the outreach message or the content that they're putting out there can make a massive difference in terms of how much inbound lead generation happens.